Um, when al-Qarnayn, when the man with the two horns, was he mentioning that Yajuj and Majuj themselves couldn't understand him, or the people complaining about Yajuj and Majuj couldn't understand him?
No, no. So Dhul Qarnayn did not speak to Yajuj and Majuj. Dhul Qarnayn spoke to the people who were being attacked by Yajuj and Majuj.
Okay.
And so that people required an interpreter. So what Allah is saying in the Quran is that that civilization and Dhul Qarnayn civilization were speaking languages that were completely different, and they could not communicate with one another, right? And so they had to communicate. They couldn't find a translator between the two of them. Their civilizations were so far apart. And so what the books of tafsir say is that they had to communicate with a type of sign language, that we need you to do this and we'll pay you for that.
Okay. And this is what this scientist actually, he sparked the idea in my head. He said, I actually think that Yajuj and Majuj might be, because the hominids apparently went away like 30 to 40, Neanderthals went extinct 30 to 40,000 years ago, at least they say. And they're much stronger. They're almost like the gorilla version of human beings. Obviously, they're completely their own species, but they were much stronger, much dumber than us, yet still kind of a hominid, right? They are a hominid. He was saying, what if Yajuj and Majuj was actually Neanderthals, and that's why...
You do have a lot of wacky theories. So the mainstream interpretation is that Yajuj and Majuj are human species. They're just a different cultural or civilizational species. Now,
can I cut you off here?
Sure.
Then why does Yajuj and Majuj come off as so unhuman? Like, how could just billions of people come out and just massacre and kill?
So I have an entire library chat which you need to listen to. Everybody could listen to it. It's called, I forgot the title, on Gog and Magog or whatever. Just listen to it. I have a very detailed explanation of classical interpretations and of what the Quran says, and we affirm everything the Quran says, and everything the authentic hadith says, we affirm it. The notion that Yajuj and Majuj are not human is a common trope in books of history, but it is not something that one derives from the Quran and from the authentic Sunnah. Okay, so yes, you are correct in that there is a trope, there is a understanding that historians had, and some scholars of tafsir had, that Yajuj and Majuj are humanoid but not humans. But the Quran and the authentic Sunnah do not give this. In fact, the authentic Sunnah mentions that Yajuj and Majuj are going to have shields, they're going to have leather garments, which is like humans have them, their faces are flat, which is again a species of mankind. I mean, not species, but a culture of mankind, so a lot of people understood them. So when Genghis Khan invaded, Genghis Khan, many of the scholars of the time interpreted them to be Yajuj and Majuj, including Qurtubi, because they looked, all the signs seemed to have been met in them, right? Flat faces and whatever it might be, and the clothes they're wearing and whatnot. And that's why they thought that Yajuj and Majuj already occurred. Like, this is the occurrence in the Quran that Allah is saying this is the sign of the Day of Judgment, this is what it is. So I also am sympathetic to the position that Yajuj and Majuj are human beings. They're not some alien species.
Is it different than the position that caused that controversy?
No, it is that position. That's why, because again, the controversy, as usual, a lot of times I might say something. Sometimes it's my fault, I say it ambiguously, and sometimes it is the fault of overzealous people who they are desirous to paint a picture that is contrary to reality, which is, again, it comes with the territory. It is what it is.
They're just looking for something, right?
This is the reality of nobody has denied Yajuj and Majuj. Nobody has denied the Quran. Anybody who denies the Quran is not a Muslim. A'udhu billah, a'udhu billah. But again, it's a matter of educating yourself. What does the Quran say? What does the Quran say? And what does the Hadith say? And once I gave the library chat and people understood, a lot of the criticism simply just disappeared, because you can't argue with facts. So you can only argue with emotions and perceptions. You cannot argue with actual knowledge and facts if you understand my position. So my position is a fairly mainstream one. Many scholars have said it. Rashid al-Dirda has said it. Amr Shah Kashmiri has said it. Qurtubi himself has a position similar to mine. Ibn Kathir is the one who basically said that the one narration that seems to suggest that Yajuj Majuj are currently trapped behind a wall, Ibn Kathir himself said this narration seems to be from the mythology of Israeliyat. It's not from the Prophet ﷺ, right? So this is something, what people don't know this. But because there's a culture of just mythology, people take mythology as fact. And when somebody comes along, a bit more educated and having studied, and makes the claim directly linking to the Quran and the Sunnah, mythology goes against sometimes Quran and Sunnah. And so when I say to people, the Quran and the authentic Sunnah, and I'm saying this clearly, very clearly, does not have within it something that forces us, or something that, not forces, not right, something that requires us is the term I'm looking for, something that requires us to believe that billions and billions and billions of people are trapped under some hidden cave somewhere. This is mythology. It's not Quran and it's not Sunnah. You want to believe it, good for you.
What about the verse where it says, فَإِذَا جَاءَ
Exactly. So listen to the library chat. You will get all of the answers there. Qurtubi said this already happened in the past. This is the sign. The sign was the invasion of the Mongols. Right? Or another interpretation, which Rashid Rida said, is that this indicates that there shall come a civilization that shall resemble Yajuj and Majuj towards the end of times, and they will have the same, barbaric tactics and the same, maybe even the biological descendants. Simple example I gave in my library chat, that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that one of the signs of the Day of Judgment is that the Roman Empire will be the dominant empire. Now, pretty much everybody understands this is Western civilization. Hold on a sec. Is America Rome? Is America Rome? I'm asking you.
No.
No. So why do people understand Western civilization as the prophetic Rome? Because it's following that trend. Because it links itself to Rome.
It does.
So then, when the Quran and Sunnah says towards the end of times, there's going to be a type of people like Yajuj and Majuj, it doesn't mean the same people al-Qarnayn trapped. Just like Roman civilization, it could be that group of people, their intellectual descendants. Maybe even their biological descendants. Right? It could be. Yeah. But it's not a point of theology. That's what I'm trying to say. You want to hold that position, no problem. I'm not saying it's wrong. But don't criminalize me when I simply point out that is an interpretation. It's not the Quran.
Yeah, because I think Russia was the one that went 7.5 miles deep into the ground. I mean, we've barely scratched the surface of the earth.
But again, listen to my library chat. No pre-modern scholar ever interpreted Yajuj and Majuj to be subaltern creatures. They all thought that these are people that are physically trapped behind an actual wall, or not all, many of them, behind an actual wall. They all thought the earth is somewhat flat, and if you keep on going, you reach the end of lands, and there's going to be a wall there, and behind that wall are barbarian tribes. This is how a number of medieval and early historians viewed the world, and I quoted them in my library chat. Now we know that to be factually incorrect because the earth has been mapped. So what has happened is that modern sentiment amongst a group of Muslims has modified the medieval theory. And they've said, okay, since we know they're not trapped behind a wall, they must be underneath the earth. I challenge you to find me one scholar who ever claimed Yajuj and Majuj were hiding in caves underneath the earth. This is a modern attempt to claim a mythology that is not even Quranic. That's my point. It's not even from the Sunnah. So you're bending over backwards and coming forth with new theories that are not found in early Islam or in pre-modern Islam to defend something that is not Quranic. This is my point. The Quran and the Sunnah is not requiring you to believe that currently there are billions and billions and billions of Homo sapiens trapped anywhere. This is what I'm stating.
So what is it requiring you to believe?
It's requiring you to believe that al-Qarnayn interacted with a group of people that wanted to be protected from barbarian tribes known as Yajuj and Majuj, and al-Qarnayn successfully made a wall that helped this tribe to be safe from those people who were known as Yajuj and Majuj. And then the Quran also says towards the end of times, those type of barbaric mentalities that existed are going to come back. Now, end of time doesn't necessarily mean before the trumpet. It could mean, just like any other minor sign, it happens, and then life goes on.
It's a major sign though, right?
So again, it goes back to the Yajuj and Majuj breaking of the wall versus the Yajuj and Majuj that will be around when Isa and Dajjal come. Are they two separate? Are they the same? Like I said, Qurtubi and others made a differentiation between the two. There is nuance in all of this, right? So the Quran tells us two things. There's a classical group of Yajuj and Majuj, and one of the signs is another Yajuj and Majuj type of people will come. Okay, like I said, a number of theologians, I think Ibn al-Athir as well, but don't quote me on that, but a number of theologians and historians said the invasion of Genghis Khan is the Quranic prediction.
But you don't believe that, right? Or do you?
No, I don't. No, I don't. But I'm saying, are you going to criminalize them for believing that? Yeah. It's an interpretation. It's a valid interpretation because they saw all that they wanted to see and like, this is exactly what Allah is referring. That's their opinion. I'm saying. So they interpreted it to mean that that sign has occurred. Now let's move on to the other signs. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's an interpretation.
Yeah. I guess we'll never know until inshallah.
And may Allah protect us from actually ever knowing with our physical eyes. We don't want to be around. So I do believe a time will come, like the Quran says, that Yajuj and Majuj will come. Do you know one of the great scholars of the past, Rashid Rida, actually said that Yajuj and Majuj could be the two superpowers in our times.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, this is not me. This is one of the great icons of a generation ago. Perhaps the greatest scholar of that generation had a view. So cut them some slack and cut me and others some slack if they say views that are not in conformity with yours, because even your views of subaltern creatures is a theory. It's a theory. So you see what I'm saying here? Yeah. It's ambiguous. Leave it ambiguous. I'm not making a definitive claim. And I'm asking my critics to also not make a definitive claim. Allah knows the truth of these things, and we affirm whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to believe. We believe in it ijmalan, meaning summarily. And we try to extrapolate what the specifics are, and they are ambiguous.
Yeah. I actually don't think Yajuj and Majuj are Neanderthals. I just wanted to see your, I guess.
How can they be Neanderthals, by the way, when the al-Qarnayn didn't interact with Neanderthals? That would not be... that wouldn't fit in. Really? Because Neanderthals are because Yajuj and Majuj, I mean...
They're like 30, 40,000 years ago when they went extinct. Some people to this day have Neanderthal DNA, actually.
Well, most of us have Neanderthal DNA. Even if you do, pretty much everybody has Neanderthal DNA, portions of DNA. But again, I don't know what to say because I'm not an evolutionary biologist. So let's leave that. Let's do that.